Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. Today we are here to do some frankening. I'm going to mainly franken my Soft Glam palette, which is my palette for this year. It is the palette collaboration with this palette right here, which is just a singles palette. I will use this shade here for sure in the frankening. Probably not the shimmers, but we'll see. So that's going to be my plan today, is to franken these two palettes. I brought out my white shadow too, just in case I need it. And the main goal is just going to be to try to get some more transition shades in this palette right here. So I am gonna jump into the video, but before I do that, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. So again, this here is my palette for the year, and I have used a couple shades a couple times. I'm actually using this one right now as a nail polish topper, really stunning shade. But overall, I haven't used these two palettes too much. So I want to film this quite early in the month, just kind of a couple days after filming the instruction. I think it's been a little bit more than just the days. I think it's been almost a week now since I filmed the video for my palette instruction, but I want to film it now before we get too far into the month. So from this palette here, I'm going to actually take it out, but I'm just going to take out the shade that I'm going to use, which is this cream shade here. I'm definitely going to use this one, but I think it's the only one I'm going to use from this palette. The rest of this I'm going to use takeaway for now. Again, we also have this white shade, which is some Sydney Grace. This is actually an extra shade. I have this in my singles collection, but this is just like a duplicate that I have, which is again just a pure white matte. So I'm going to use that too. And the reason why I'm pulling these two out is because I want to lighten some of these deeper shades in the palette. So on top of that, I also have some tools. I didn't know why I brought up my magnetic tool, probably don't need that, but I do have my spatula tool, and I also have some paper here to use both to keep it clean, but also to help scooch the eyeshadow back into this. I just realized I also need my alcohol, so I'm gonna go get that and I will be right back. And here we also have my alcohol. Is just in an old Inglot container because it has like a good pump on it, so that is why, but that is all I need for the frankening. So I'm gonna need to start tackling what I want to do with this palette. So I did some swatching out of this palette to see what I wanted to do, and these two shades I'm gonna franken together to make a transition shade because I really liked that last time. I did have that one in here before, and it creates quite a similar shade to burnt orange. So I think I'm going to franken some of that together again to make the same transition shade. With sienna, I think I'm going to leave it because I don't have too much. Actually, I might repress it because it's quite thin now around the edges. So I might repress it just to make it easier to use. But I'm not going to franken it this time because I don't have too much left of it. So this one I'm going to leave as is. Then we have these three shades here, which are the main ones I want to franken because they're very deep. And I do enjoy them on their own, but I feel like I don't use very much of them every time I use them just because of the depth of them. So I want to franken them, and I was looking at, like, I did some swatches to see how I like them with these two shades, and they actually turn out quite differently with, like, depending on which shade you used with it. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and do some more frankening using both of these. I might not do, one for, like, well, I guess two per shade, so not one with both of these per shade. This one here, I might just use this one because last time it created like quite a cool toned shade, which I did enjoy, but I don't know. I think, yeah, with this one, I think I'm going to franken it with that. For this shade here, I think I'm also going to franken it with this one, maybe with this one too, to get a little bit more of a, I think it's going to be more of a pinkier purple kind of undertone. And then with this one here, I think I'm going to make one with this one too, maybe with this one, we'll see. But that is my plan. I might do some swatching out later on to figure out what I want to do, but I think I'm going to start off with the simplest thing, which is just franking these two together. Before I start doing anything else though, I want to weigh this white shadow just to see how much of this one I put in, purely because I am tracking the weight of this shadow in my other palette. So since I'm putting both of them in, I need to know how much comes from that and how much comes from this white shadow. So this one, as you can see, weighs 2.83. So I'm going to make a note of that. I might as well weigh the cream too. So that weighs 3.09 grams. And while I'm at it, I might also just weigh my actual palette because it might have changed a little bit since last time. So it now weighs 156 even. So yeah, great. I am going to go ahead and start working on it now because now I know how much everything weighs, so I can do some maths afterwards to see how much of each kind of shadow I pull in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by scraping out some of these two shades just to create that kind of transition shade that I liked so much last time. And we're going to try to scrape out quite even amounts. Yeah, we'll see how it goes, but I'm going to start scraping this shade here. Alright, so I scraped some of that out. I got a little bit of a pan expansion there, but not too much. I try not to get that when I do these. But that is a decent amount of orange soda. I'm going to try to put this one to one side so I can put the palette on the paper again to get some of Dusty Rose out. I'm going to start with something like that. Alright, so we have that shade there. I might pull in more, but we're going to start with this and start mixing it because I can't really I don't want to add more of orange soda, so I'd rather you start like this and see if I need more of burnt orange later. Also not burnt orange, Dusty Rose. Okay, that is mixed enough now to swatch, I think. Okay, so that is a really nice shade. Ooh, I really like that. I think it's a little bit more orange leaning than last time I did the shade. The question is if I want to add some bit more of Dusty Rose or leave it here. I think it's a really nice light transition shade. I think I might add just a tiny bit more of Dusty Rose. And I think that looks good in the pan too. So I'm going to stop with Dusty Rose there and again mix that last bit in. And I think after that we can repress it. Okay, so I'm just going to swatch it again next to that other shade. Okay, yeah, so now you can see it's a little bit more cool tone than last time. I think that will work quite nicely. Yeah, it's going to be an easy, everyday crease shade. I can go with a lot of different things. So I'm going to stop there. Yeah, I think I would like this one too, but they both work. And again, it's going to be a really nice crease shade to use. And then the question is where I should pour this in. Before I had this Frankening in this shade or this pan, but I think this time around I might press it somewhere else. Question is just where. Actually, no, I'm just gonna stick with the same spot. Doesn't really matter where they go, to be honest, as long as I make a note of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this into the spot of Tempera, which is right here. So we have that right there. It's all in the pan. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add some alcohol and I'm going to go ahead and press it. I need some tissue for that. Okay, so I have some tissue here so I can repress it. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my pipette and I'm going to go ahead and put some alcohol in that container. I just realized this is broken, so hopefully it will be easier to do it this way. No. Okay, so this pipette is broken. I need to figure out a new way to use that, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour very gently into that pan instead. And hopefully there I didn't put too much in, but I'm just going to go ahead and start mixing that up. Alright, so there we go, there we have that pan, and it was perfect amount of alcohol actually, so I'm going to go ahead and start repressing it now, and I'm just going to use my fingers. I might go and get some sort of tool, but actually I'm just going to use my fingers. I think it's going to be good. I'm not going to press it too hard anyway, just because I don't want it to be too hard to use. So there we have that. I changed my mind. I want to get a lipstick that I know can fit in there, just because I feel like it will be a bit more even if I press it with something else. So there we go. That is the first shade, and that is the shade between Dusty Rose and Orange Soda. So my camera needed a break, so I went ahead and I swatched out the three the shades here, apart from the black of course, and I swatched it up here with the cream shade. on this side. In the middle is original like kind of shade, and then here is with the white shade. So you can see there is like a little bit of a difference depending on which shade you swatch it with. And I feel like I really like the ones with the cream because I feel like it keeps the same undertone, but it just makes them lighter. So I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna swatch, like I'm gonna franken this one here with the cream only. I did do it with the white last time, and it was a fine shade, but it wasn't like my favorite because it was quite cool toned. And I feel like I won't want that this time, and if I want it, I can get it from this dark brown. And then with this one here, which is Mulberry, I feel like I like both. This one is almost purpley, which is really fun. And then this shade here is quite nice too. So I think I'm going to do both of these. And then this one here, I think I might do both as well. I think this one might be a good... Well, actually, will that be a good brow shade for me? I might do a little bit with the white, just to try it out in my brows. But yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. So I think I'm going to do 5 Frankens here. Or is that too much? I might just do the 4. I might just do these 4 for now. So these and then this one. Maybe. We'll see. I think that's what I'm going to start with at least. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and repress Sienna. Just because I feel like it's easier to do that before I start getting anything else messy. And again, I'm just going to pour some alcohol in there. I probably don't need very much because it's just such a small amount of sienna left. I probably put way too much in there. I'm going to try to absorb some before it goes into the eyeshadow. Okay, I got a little bit of eyeshadow there. Whoopsie. But yeah, it's as you put way too much alcohol in for that shade. So see how it is now. Otherwise, I will have to let it. Yeah, I'm going to have to let it. What's it called? Evaporate before I press this one, and I can probably do that while I wait for the other shades. So I'm just going to even this shade out. Again, really not that much left of sienna. So I'm going to go ahead and let that evaporate for a bit, and in the meantime I'm going to go ahead and tackle these other shades. And I think I'm going to start with Mulberry because it's furthest away from this, so I don't get any shadow in here accidentally while it's still wet. So let's start off with Mulberry mixed with... I'm going to go ahead and mix with the white first because I think this is the only shade I'm going to mix with the white for now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to start by taking off a thin layer from the top, not too much because these Franken shades are all kind of what's it called, child ones for me, and I don't know how much I'm going to use them. Maybe I won't like them, so I'm going to try not to take too much from each shade, but I also feel like I still need a head start for these darker colors because they're quite hard to use, especially Mulberry. Mulberry is a very hard pressed shade, so any Frankening you can get out of it will be very helpful. Okay, I'm going to start with that. So I'm going to go ahead and dump it out on this paper here. Alright, so we have something like that. And then to mix with that, we're going to go in with the white. So I'm going to just take again my little tool, and I'm going to go ahead and scrape out some of this white. I'm going to try not to go into the center because I feel like I'm quite close to pan there, and I don't want it pan yet because it's going to make this shadow way more fragile. So I'm sticking around the edges for now. And I'm going to start with that much, which is actually a little bit more. I'm going to say about the same amount as Mulberry. So a little bit more than that. Alright, something like that. So we'll take this to the side for now and start mixing these 2 shades up. Alright, so I've mixed some of that up now. I'm going to go ahead and swatch it. I'm going to swatch it right here. So you can see right there, that's quite a nice shade. Do I want to make it lighter? How is Mulberry now? So Mulberry is a little bit darker. Do I want to make it a little bit lighter? I think maybe a tad bit lighter, so add a little bit more of that white in, just to make it a handful bit lighter. Alright, so I think that amount is good. So I'm going to go ahead again and mix this up. All right, so let's swatch this again. Okay, that is much better. It's like a purpley tone now, but I really like that, and I think that's going to be quite versatile and very different from everything else in the palette. So the question is, where am I putting this shade? So I think I might just continue up in this corner just because why not? I might put it here next to Dusty Rose because I think those two will work nicely together. I don't even know if you can see that, by the way, but I'm saying I'm going to put it there in Dusty Rose. The palette might have been out of frame, but I'm going to go ahead and just pour that in there. And that is everything. So that is all the shadow, not too much. Actually, it's probably a similar amount to Sienna, because I didn't want to make too much of the shade that is going to be quite different. So yeah, I think that's going to be it. But in the meantime, I think Sienna has now dried out enough. So I'm going to go ahead and press this one too. So I'm going to start by using my fingers. And then I'm going to go in with that lipstick again, just to be able to get into it properly. And there we have that shade. It looks great. I think that is done now. So I'm going to go ahead and now pour in some alcohol into Fairy. And again, I might have put in too much. It's really hard with these shadows with so little amount in them. Yeah, I definitely put in way too much. So this one is also going to have to sit here for a little bit, just because I put in too much. It's so hard with these. And also, unfortunately, my dripper is broken, so it is what it is, but this one's just gonna have to sit here while I work on the other shades. This one is actually really wet. Yeah, I'm just gonna let that sit there for a while. I might even let it sit for a while before I start taking out shadow from these, because I think it's gonna drip if I don't. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and leave that for now, and then once it's a bit more evaporated, I will be right back. Okay, so it's been a little while now, and this is definitely starting to dry out. So I think I can continue on now with the next shade. And for that shade, I'm again going to go into Mulberry, and I'm going to mix it with the beige this time, just to get a different bit of a different undertone for it. So I'm going to go ahead and again scrape some Mulberry out. Again, I don't really know how much I'm going to take out, but again, hopefully not too much. But I know last time it didn't make too much shadow, so I shouldn't be too worried. So I'm just going to take some out of this. Okay, something like that, I think. So let me pour that out. All right, so is that a good amount? I think so. Just want to even this out a tiny bit. And there we have that shade. So I'm going to put this to the side again, and I'm going to go into the cream. So for this cream, I'm going to again take a good amount, about the same as I did before. This is in my palette too. So, you know, whenever I use this Franken, it will be a use for both of these shadows, which will be useful. And this is a very full cream shadow. All right, something like that perhaps. So let me start mixing these two up. All right, something like that. So let's again see how this one swatches out. All right, so it's still quite purpley toned. I might put a little bit more of the cream in just to make it a little bit lighter again. And I think something like that. So again, let's mix it up. All right, so let's try this again and see what the swatch is like. Okay, so that is definitely a bit lighter now, and I think you can use that one as a crease shade. So I'm happy with that shade to press in. Question is, where should I put it? I might put it above the other one, so right here. I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm using all the shadow from this paper. And we are gonna go ahead and press that, or pour it, I guess, first, into the spot of glistening. All right, so there we go. It's definitely a little bit more than the other shade, but I think that's good because I think this is going to be more of an everyday kind of shade for me compared to this one here. Okay, something like that. And again, we're going to pour in some of this alcohol, and again, hopefully I don't do too much. I'm going to be very gentle this time. Okay, hopefully that's a good amount. Again, it's a little bit more shadow in here, so I'm hoping that it's gonna not be too much. But again, I think I might have gone too much again. It's so hard. I need to really get a better what's it called? I need to really get a better pipette to use for this, because again, shocker, we have too much alcohol. So that's also gonna have to sit here and evaporate for a bit. But this one, by the way, is basically ready to be repressed. So at least that's a good sign. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna repress the one in this bottle of Fairy, which is that shade Mulberry and a white. And I think again that's good to go now. So I'm gonna go ahead and press that. I need to find where it sits. So right there. And I'm gonna press it again with the lipstick as a tool. And we have something like that, and that looks really good. Okay, I'm happy with that. All right, so it is salvageable even if you do put too much alcohol in. But again, I'm gonna let this one sit for a bit while I work on the other one. I think I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna wipe it with this paper, by the way, just to get off the excess of Mulberry. And I think the next shade I want to tackle is gonna be Rustic, which I'm gonna mix again with a cream shade. So that's gonna be the next one I'm gonna go into. So again, I'm gonna go ahead and take a little bit of this shade. Okay, I think we have something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and pour that out on the paper again. All right, I think that might be a good amount. I'm just going to go ahead and again even this out a tiny bit. All right, so that is good. I'm going to let this sit for a while again to the side and let glistening or that Mulberry shade again kind of dry out. So in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead into this cream shade again, and I'm going to go ahead and continue taking a little bit out for the shade Rustic. Okay, I think maybe something like that. I think I'm going to start with that at least. So we're going to go ahead and mix this up again. All right, so that is that shade. I'm going to go ahead and swatch it again. Just to see what it looks like, and that looks like a great transition shade. I'm really happy with that. It's a little bit less cool tone than the one I had mixing it with the white, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to press it like this. And the question is, where should I press it? Should I continue maybe here, or do I want to press it on top of these two? That's the question. It's clearly a hard question. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and press it in this corner. I'm just going to continue doing that. I'm just going to continue putting them like on this side of the palette. So I'm going to put it in this spot of burnt orange. And there we have that. So again, we're going to go put some, like even it out a bit. And then we're going to put some alcohol in it. Okay, again, let's see how I do with the pouring. Clearly not so well today, but let's see how it goes. All right, I think that might have been a good amount for this amount of shadow actually. Yeah, definitely way better than the other ones. It's actually creating a bit of a paste and not just completely liquid, although still very liquid. All right, so again, I'm gonna let that sit for a bit while I work on the next shade. And that's gonna be Cypress Umber, again mixed with that cream shade. And I think after that, I'm gonna be done with the Frankening for today. So my memory card was full, so I had to delete something. I hope the angle is okay, but I'm gonna go ahead and continue taking a little bit more of this cream shade. And I think then I'm done with this cream shade. I'm gonna put that to the side. And again, I'm gonna start mixing these two colors up. All right, so there we have that shade. Again, I'm gonna go ahead and swatch it out, see what it looks like. Okay, so that is like a cool tone taupe. It's quite nice, and I think it's light enough that I'm happy with that as a transition shade. So I'm gonna go ahead and repress this too as it is now. And again, I'm just gonna continue up here. So I'm gonna put it in the shade of Rose Pink. All right, so that is that shade. And again, I'm gonna go ahead and even it out, and then we're gonna pour in some alcohol. And that shade, by the way, I think is gonna be perfect for my brows once I run out of the brow powder that I'm currently panning. So that's gonna be a good alternative for that shade if I need it. And again, we're gonna pour in a tiny bit of alcohol. Okay, we actually might have a shade that is not too full of alcohol, but it's also very, very thin. So that's something to keep in mind. But I think I might be able to press that straight away. So I'm going to take this paper and I'm going to go ahead and actually press that straight away. I'm going to use again that lipstick. Yeah, and that's fine pressed. Great. Okay, so that looks good. I think that's going to be a good, again, brow shade for me. It is very thin though, so I can always franken more if I need to later. But yeah, very, very happy with that. Let me clean off the edges. And I think now it might be ready to repress that shade Glistening. So I'm going to go ahead and do that too. Hopefully enough of the alcohol has evaporated. So I'm going to go ahead and press that. Yeah, that looks good. I'm going to press it again. Okay, perfect. And then we are going to go ahead and do burnt orange, or I guess this one is the mix between rustic and the beige. But you might need a tiny bit more time to evaporate. Now, I'm just going to wing it. I hope it's going to be fine. I'm just going to double up the paper. Sorry, my camera cut off, but I decided to repress that last shade too. Yeah, luckily that was fine. This is the shade Rustic mixed with that cream shade. And again, I'm just pressing that in here. And there we have that. And that is basically all of the repressing. I'm going to go ahead again and clean up the edges. And then that is going to be it for this video. Alright, so there we have the palette. I'm going to move everything else out of the way. So this is what it looks like. Of course, these still need to dry. I will take some footage of this palette once it is dry. I might insert it here if I do it before this video goes up, which I should do. So yeah, this is a beautiful kind of palette, and I love now having so many different options for crease shades and not just those deep shades. I think it's going to be very useful to have. Some of these are very thin, might go very quickly, but overall I'm very, very pleased and I'm happy that I did this. Of course, the palette looks way more full now, but it is the introduction of the beginning of the year, so I think it's fine. I think these are still going to hopefully all be done. And it will really help with using up these deeper shades. I might do more Franks like this in the future if I use these up. But yeah, that is going to be it for this video. I really, really hope you enjoyed it. Last thing, by the way, to show you is that cream shade. This one here. I have used a decent amount, but not like too much. It's not close to being empty, and I did kind of even out very, very evenly, so that's fine. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to weigh everything once this is dried. So I'm going to weigh this, I'm going to weigh the white and weigh this, just to calculate how much I used from each shade, and that will help me have some accurate weight for this one too for the finale. But yeah, I hope you guys are having an amazing day wherever you are, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye guys!